Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog at stampwithelaine.com. I do love a square card, but as Stampin' Up don't provide square envelopes except for the 3" by 3" ones, I made a bookfold card for this autumn card with the Cottage Wreaths bundle. So with the bookfold card, it opens like a book. So there's a spine, so this card, this portion will be square, but then at the same time it'll fit into an ordinary C6 envelope. To make the card, I use the Cottage Wreaths photopolymer stamp set, which is bundled with the Country Wreath dies, and you'll find this in the July to December mini catalogue on page 22. I've already covered how to use these dies and stamps in a previous video, but this is just to recap. In the stamp set you'll find that there's a little arrow here and here, so that is an aid memoir on where to place your die in order to cut the wreath, so you don't spend an awful lot of time rotating your die to try and find the right spot, because that arrow where the stamp is corresponds with the arrow on the die. So both these dies have got an arrow. You see that? I'm using this stamp, so I've marked my stamp as well with a black dot, a permanent marker, and I always mount it to the right of my block, so then when I come to stamp it, I know that I need to orient the stamp so that the arrow is pointing to the right. The dies I'm using in this set will be the wreath die. I'm going to be using these dies, which will cut out the leaves, and there are 4 of these altogether. Also use this one to die cut a bow, so I've pre-die cut that in Cajun Craze. There are 2 bow dies. One cuts out the stamped image of the die, but this one embosses and die cuts it as well without you having to stamp on it. The inks I'm using are Cajun Craze and Old Olive, and I'll also need pumpkin pie. And I'm going to die cut all the leaves in Very Vanilla, so I'll need stamping blends to colour them with. These are Old Olive, Pumpkin Pie, Calypso Coral, and with the Stampin' Right markers, Cajun Craze. You need, say, half an A4 sheet to stamp your wreath and die cut your leaves. That's more than generous enough. The card base is 4 1/8 by 10 3/4, and then on the long side you score at 4 1/8 and 5 3/8. So in metric that will be 10.5 by 27 centimeters, and on the long side you score at 10.5 and 13.5 centimeters. Now these papers are from the Gingham Cottage Designer Series paper, and there are 48 sheets in the pack, and they come in all sorts of different colours, and I've chosen this one because it's light enough for you to stamp on and still be able to see the image, and also it's autumnal colours. So this measures 4 by 4, so it's quite economical to cut up your whole sheet of 12 by 12, and it will be divisible by 4 quite easily. This piece is 1 1/8 inches by 4 inches, and that measures 2.5 by 10 centimeters in metric. Then for the inside of the card you need a piece that is also 4 inches by 4 inches in Very Vanilla. And last but not least, the leaf label and amber gem combo pack. I'm not actually going to use the leaves, but I will use the gems, which I've done there. So first I'm going to stamp the leaves. There's this trio of leaves here. So there are 3 leaves on the one stamp. So I'm going to stamp it on the strip first. I've used my stamper outers because there's a foam mat underneath. Swap papers, and now I'm going to stamp from the top right corner down to the left bottom corner. And I'm going to stamp a little bit up the top here so that it will peek through the wreath. And while I've still got my leaf out, I'm going to stamp the inside of the card. First I'm going to stamp the darker colour first, which is Cajun Craze, and I'll stamp it right in the middle here. And then I want to create a shadow for the word, so I'll ink it up in Pumpkin Pie, and I've got the darker colour there, so I'll hover this over the word and then stamp. Can you see that shadow? I just scooted the position of the stamp slightly skew-if. Now I can carry on stamping the leaves. Back with my Cajun Craze, and I can stamp the acorns. So now I can do this piece. Last of all, the little tiny strip. Bring in my wreath, and because this stamp is bigger than normal, I'm going to take my ink pad to the stamp rather than the other way round. Make sure I've oriented my wreath so that the mark is on the right. Then stamp. Now I'm going to just scribble some colour onto the cardstock. Make sure that it's big enough to fit the die. And do the same here. You're probably wondering, well, why don't I just cut it out of the cardstock? Now, I just figured that if you've got a very vanilla piece, you might as well do a bit of colouring and create it that way. It gives it a softer look, I think, rather than cutting it out of the actual cardstock. This one is just a Cajun Craze marker because there isn't an alcohol marker with this colour. Now the reason why I've done it this way is because it's easier to die cut them from a big piece of paper and already coloured rather than trying to colour them once they're die cut, because they'll be teeny tiny and it'll be a lot more difficult to do. So now I'm going to just put some washi tape there to hold the dies down so they don't move, and the same with this. So remember, I had my arrow mark on the stamp pointing to the right, so I want the arrow pointing to the right. And there you go, straight on, no problem. I'll do this off camera and I'll be back once I've finished die cutting them all. So remember your die cutting sandwich, it's platform 1, platform 2, base cutting platform 3, and a top your cardstock followed by the dies, cutting edge face down, your second platform 3, and you're ready to run it through the machine. So there are my coloured die cut pieces. So I'm going to now glue the stamped designer series paper onto the binding, which is here. And that one onto the main card. with the diagonal running from top right to bottom left. Now I'm going to put tear and tape to the right of this score line here, which is the centre score line, and one to the right of this first score line. Remove the backing tape from the tear and tape. Close the card like so to create the book binding piece which is there. Apply adhesive to this piece and then glue it to the inside of the card. Now I've put dimensionals on the back, so I'll pop this on here. Now put my leaves on the glue dots, so I'm going to start with the darker leaves and put it on here so that there is a bit of contrast. Grab my bow to see where that goes, so I'll have it round about there, I think. So the position of the leaves are in the right position. Put a dimensional on the back of the bow, then pop that on, like so. Bring back my stamp apparatus because I've already mounted my stamp on the plate and it's in exactly the right position for stamping straight onto the card. And last finishing touch, just a couple of gems. Da 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 da! It's done. So I hope you've enjoyed this project and I'll be back with more inspiration next time. If you liked it, do give me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And you can also find me on Facebook, Pinterest or Instagram. And if you'd like to read more, then I'll put a link down below to my blog. Thanks for watching. Bye.